Welcome all, and thank you for joining us here today. Before we begin, in the spirit of reconciliation, LGP acknowledges the traditional custodians of the land that we meet upon today. We acknowledge the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, whose cultures and customs have nurtured and continue to nurture this land since the Dreamtime. We pay our respects to elders past, present and future. I extend that respect to the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples here today. Welcome all, my name is Luke Kenny, I'm the CEO of LGP and it's a pleasure to have you with us. I'll also be joined today by Phil Scott, our Chief Procurement Officer, and Phil will be up soon to talk a little bit more about our program in detail very shortly. From an attendee perspective, really pleased to see 67 different councils registered this morning to join us, and over 100 people are keen to get on board and have a listen to what we've got to say today and what we're about to launch. So we really appreciate that support again from our councils, and again, thanks for taking time to join us. From a housekeeping perspective, whilst we've tried to mute people's microphones as they come in, if you could please make sure your microphone is muted. As we get to questions, we can certainly have people unmute themselves if they wish. But for now, just to avoid background noise as we work through what we want to share, making sure we've got our microphones on mute would be terrific. From a questions perspective, please feel free to log them in the chat. I should remind you this webinar is being recorded and we're recording this webinar today so we can share it with those people who couldn't make it. And equally too, you can refer back to this later on if there's something you missed. You'll be able to access the recording and pick up some of the detail that we're going to go through. So questions through the chat, we're going to monitor those. Phil will try and get to as many as he can at the end of the session, but don't worry if we don't. If we don't get to all the questions, we are going to prepare responses and circulate. So you'll get a copy of those anyway, and that will help you further understand what we're looking to do and what we're looking to achieve from this grant program. Nothing like a good drum roll. I'm very pleased to formally announce the launch of the new LGP Procurement Capability Grant Fund. This is a great initiative for us to begin, something very different for LGP, something we're very proud of, and something we want to continue year on year now. This is a real commitment from us in terms of how we can help support procurement in the local government sector here in New South Wales. Let me share a little bit about why. Why do we do it? Why are we launching this Procurement Capability Grant Program? For us, it's about encouraging areas of improvement to see impactful initiatives in procurement capability be delivered. We know how councils are challenged with resources, with funding, with time, with effort. We're hoping this new grant program can help with that and give you an opportunity to submit something that you've always wanted to do, but maybe not have had the resources, the time or the money to be able to do it. And all of that is about improving procurement practice in your organisation. It's also hopefully to motivate collaboration. We hope to see out of this program maybe groups of councils coming together, maybe ROCs coming together or a ROC coming together and saying, hey, we've always wanted to do this thing to make us better in the context of how we procure. This is your opportunity. This is your chance to design that little project, put it forward to us for our consideration. We're really keen to see those ideas starting to come through and really keen to see how councils start to collaborate with each other. And that's really going to be an exciting part of what we're doing. Equally too, we get to leverage funds. We have a rebate scheme, as everybody knows. We've taken a portion of those funds to support this particular program. Some of the challenges we see with the LGP rebate scheme is procurement people, and a lot of the 100 people here are procurement people who don't always get access to the LGP annual rebate funds allocation. This is an opportunity for you now to reach in directly and have some of those funds specifically, overtly apply to a project that you want to deliver in procurement capability. And I think that's a great outcome from this. We will still have a rebate scheme, but we're also now looking at this as supporting that notion and making sure funds do get to the practitioners to deliver those projects they want to see delivered. And that's also part of why we've done it. What do we hope to achieve? Look, I've talked about this targeted funding, defining impactful projects. So when we look at submissions in this grant program, we'll be looking at what's this going to mean to the council, the councils, the ROCs or the JOs if we're to approve this project. What will it do for them? How significant will that be for them? And obviously, impacts for metro councils might be different for regionals. And so we'll be really looking at when we make decisions around the projects that are submitted, what's going to have the biggest impact? That's really going to be key for us because we want to make sure that we're helping those as best we can. It also makes sure we're getting good returns for people who don't always get access to a lot of funding. So we'll be keeping an eye on the metros, but we'll also be watching the regionals and rurals, who again don't get a lot of money out of LGP from our rebate scheme because they're just not a big entity and they don't spend as much. And this is a way of balancing some of the sharing of those funds and creating new ways to access that might not be available under our traditional means. And finally, we want to share the stories of these projects that we fund and these projects that we support. We'll actually turn them into case studies, and Phil might touch on that a little bit later, but turn them into case studies to share with everyone to say, well, this LGP Capability Grant Fund helped me deliver this particular project. We achieved these things, and this is something that others can leverage. And I think that's really important for us to make sure that we're sharing the stories of what we can achieve. What were the impacts? What was the benefit? How can other people gain some knowledge from what we're funding under this LGP program? Before I hand over to Phil Scott, he's going to take you through some details of this Capability Grant Fund in very quite practical terms. And I'll say this before I bring Phil up. This has been designed to be as easy as possible. We're not trying to create barriers for people to enter this program. We're trying to make it as easy as possible. And I think Phil's going to do a really good job at sharing that with you. And then he'll carry over with the Q&A session. He will pick up those questions. If you've got questions, please pop them in the chat. We'll keep an eye on them. But for now, I'll bring up Phil Scott to take you through some detail. Thanks, Phil.
Thank you, Luke. Really good to be with you today. This is a great news story. It's good for procurement people. It's going to be an opportunity for us in procurement to have a little bit more influence over things that we want to do in procurement and getting some funding to be able to implement those particular projects. So please, if you've got something in mind, think about it and please lodge an application. So this morning I'm going to quickly walk you through just a little bit of the background to the process, how it all works, call it the governance if you like. I'll then take you through the actual application form, the stage 1 application form, and then we'll have a look at the website and show you how to find that application form on the website. So I hope at the end of the process you'll have today's program I should say, you'll have a fairly good idea of what's involved and exactly how simple it will be. So firstly, a little bit about governance. At the LGP level, our board of directors will be involved in approving the final projects that receive the funding. Our board of directors is actually composed of people from councils and from outside of councils. So it is quite a balanced group, and we feel that that's a good way to have this approval and keep the certainty about good governance in terms of which projects are awarded the funding. At the council level, what we'll be asking for is for you to nominate a senior member of your council management team as the person who's endorsing the project so that we can have confidence that within your organisation it has been approved and that there's suitable governance at that side. For those projects that are deemed successful, there'll be a conditions of participation form which we'll be asking you to sign. That will only be submitted to those that are successful, and that just gives some details of the obligations of both LGP and of the council. So there'll be clear guidelines there as to how this all operates. The funding itself, it's going to be done on an annual basis. So we've got funding available for this calendar year, and we'll be making funding available in future calendar years as well. So it's meant to be a project, a funding arrangement that will go on indefinitely for the moment. There'll be a new budget allocation each year. The budget allocated for this year is $100,000. So it's a substantial amount of money, which we hope to be able to use for a number of projects across the councils in various regions. To have funds released to your council. What we will obviously be needing is evidence that the project has been started, and that in most cases there's an invoice there from the provider of, whether it be software or services or equipment, whatever it is that is behind the particular project. The funding will be made directly to the organisation that has been approved for the funding. So that will generally be a council. We won't be making payments directly to a contractor, for instance. So just keep that in mind. Some of the projects obviously will be quite simple. Some will be much more complex and potentially take time to complete. We will consider making phased payments. So if there's milestones for a particular project that might be taking a while to complete, then we're willing to consider making phased funding for those. The actual allocations of funds, there's a minimum of $3,000, including GST, as the minimum amount we would consider. The maximum amount per project will be $25,000, including GST. So there are a couple of important figures for you just to keep in mind. That funding could be partial payment for a particular project. It doesn't have to represent the full payment for the project. Because we recognise also that there may be some projects that councils might be undertaking where perhaps there's government funding coming in, council has allocated some budget, and the LGP fund might just help support that budget. The application process, there's two stages. The first one is what we're calling an expression of interest. So it'll be a fairly simple form, which we'll be showing you shortly. As we talk through that in a few minutes, you'll note that the fields have word limits, and I'll talk to those and give you some guidance as to how to complete those. We want to keep that simple. We don't want you to have to feel that you've got to submit reams and reams of paperwork. There'll be a maximum of 2 attachments that you can add to your submission. So again, they should be relatively simple, but if you feel that you need to attach something, then that information can be passed on to us. And those applications will be lodged through the LGP website. We're going to keep everything electronically based, and that will work in favour of yourselves and ours as well. Now, there is an option during the process for our committee to request further information. So if, for instance, the project might need a little bit more substantiation or a little bit more explanation, then we'll come back to you and seek that information in due course. Stage 2 will be submission of the final details. So those projects that get through stage 1, the relevant people will be asked to take that to stage 2 and submit a little bit more detail about the project. And again, that form will be relatively simple. We don't want to make it highly complicated, but it's at that stage where the conditions of participation form will also be provided, and we'll be seeking your authorisation behind that. Now, those projects which are nominated by our committee to be successful will go up to our LGP board for approval, and that's part of our governance process to ensure that there is fair consideration of all the projects that are put through. The application form details themselves, we're going to go to the website in a moment, or at least not to the website, but rather I'm going to get our application form up on the screen here so that you can have a look at what it looks like. This will be the stage 1 expression of interest form. I'm going to scroll through it. Obviously, at the start, we've got some guidance notes and giving you a bit of background there. But field number 1, of course, we need to know who it is that's applying. So it's the name of your organisation, which will typically be a council, but there may be joint organisations or regional organisations of councils who wish to apply for funding as well. And that's great. We would like to see them involved, and we certainly encourage them. We're here to support all procurement people across the board. Now, an important field is number 2. Field number 2 is the key contact. So this will generally be, we would expect, the procurement person in the organisation. And of course, we do need that person to nominate what their position is in field 3. And then, of course, we go on to 4 and 5, where we've got the contact details. Please just take the extra effort to double check that what you put in there is correct. Sometimes errors occur, and then it just is a little bit challenging sometimes to get back to the right person. And we certainly don't want to have situations where we send out information to the nominated person and it's going to a dud email address and we're not receiving a reply back to say that it's not being received. Now, the Next field that's particularly important is field number 6. I'll just get a scroll back to there. It's the authorised by field. So what we're looking for here is just the name of what I would expect would be a senior officer within the council, somebody probably at the executive or senior management level who is actually endorsing this project submission. So we just need to make sure that there is knowledge within the council that this application is being made and it is being approved. Position of that person, of course, at field number 7. Now, field number 9 is the project type, and this is a good one for you to just have a look at. Now, we've got several options there. You could apply for a particular project that's related to process improvement, procurement resource development, it could be technology based, or it could be about professional development, training, things like that for the procurement staff. If you've got a project that doesn't fit in with those, just select the other. And then when we select other, we can move down to the next field, which on the application form will just allow us or allow you to just put in a little bit of detail there about what the project actually is. And it just helps us understand what the background to the project will be. Now, field number 10 just clarifies the amount of expenditure that we're willing to approve. And of course, the amount of applications that are approved will ultimately be determined, I guess, by the number of applications we actually receive. So the earlier you get in, the better. Once all of the funding has been used up, then unfortunately we won't be able to consider all applications. Field number 11 is the project title, and field number 12, you'll note here, is where we're asking you to outline the ways in which your organisation will benefit. We've allowed for 500 words to be put into the field. You don't need to fill out the whole 500 words. We recognise that some projects, particularly at the lower end of the dollar scale, might be quite simplistic. You know, if you feel that 20 words are really adequate to describe the benefits that are going to be achieved, then presumably that will be sufficient. If the project is more detailed, then perhaps you might want to put down a little bit of extra information for us. Field number 13 is all about the project timeline. So we're looking to understand how long it will take to complete. Obviously, some might be just a simple purchase, and once the goods are delivered, yeah, that's it. But there might be other projects which will be ongoing over a certain period of time. So we just need to understand that. And then field number 14 is about listing the key project outcomes. So they could be quite simple, or they might be quite significant. And it just depends what your project is. Now, we'll leave that up to you to detail. If you feel that you just need a little bit more guidance, then contact your LGP Business Development Manager. They'll be more than helpful in talking you through that and perhaps giving you some guidance. And certainly if there's a question that they can't answer, then they'll come back to us. So the stage 1 expression of interest form is exactly that. Once you've completed those fields, you hit the submit button on the bottom of the screen there. So I hope you'll agree with me. It's a pretty simple process so far. And in fact, the stage 2 process won't be all that much more detailed either. Now, I'll just talk a little bit about the application evaluation methodology that's going to be used by LGP. So basically, what we're looking for really is procurement projects that are based around procurement capability, process improvement. Maybe it's a funding request that relates to disaster recovery. And considering the weather over the last few days, I'm sure some of you out there are actually in one of those situations where your councils are dealing with exactly those situations now. So it might be that there's some quite useful projects right at this moment that could be coming up to be nominated. So please give some thought to that. The evaluation criteria itself, we've got a number of things that we're going to look at. The degree of need is one of the important ones to us, because often what happens is smaller councils in particular have a lot of things that they'd love to be doing, but they may be a lot more restricted on funding. Certainly the regional councils have some challenges, and we'd like to support them if we can. We'd like to support all councils if we can. So the need will certainly be one of those things we'll consider. The anticipated benefits, and you'll recall that a couple of those fields really dealt with this area. The benefits that the procurement team is going to get out of this change, this project, or perhaps the council as a whole, are important things. But we really want to focus on procurement and helping our procurement people out there. Next one is the capability for the project. So if a council was to lodge a very expensive project and seeking the whole $25,000 funding, but that project is such that they don't have the capability and they really haven't demonstrated where they can get that capability, that might be a little bit of a challenge for us to consider. So again, give some thought to that. We just want to have confidence and comfort that the project that gets approved will be able to be sustained in the longer term. And the success, the likelihood of success. We want to make sure that this money goes to areas where it will be able to be spent and we'll be able to give achievements to all of you in procurement fields out there. I hope that gives you a little bit of quick background to it. As you go through the process and the application form, you'll find a little bit more detail, and certainly our business development managers can help you with background too. So we're going to have a look now at where to find the application form. And we're going to go to the website, which you can see here now on the screen. And over in the top right-hand corner of the screen, there's an icon called Resources. So if you click on that icon, it'll take you through to the next screen. And I'll ask you to just scroll down that screen. We'll go through slowly here, past a couple of things, newsletter and so forth, disaster recovery support, until we come to the LGP Procurement Capability Grants Program. This is where you need to be to lodge your first application form. Now, if you'll see a section there at the bottom called Learn More, just click on that hyperlink and that will open up the actual form for you. Now we're going to scroll through this, past that information just at the top, and you'll see there we've got how to apply. Step 1, lodge your expression of interest. And step 2, submission, review and decision. So that's telling you a little bit about the particular process and how it takes place. And then you'll see there towards the bottom, it says to lodge your EOI, click here. So we've got a hyperlink. You click on that hyperlink and voila, we've got the actual application form here. So this is the one that I spoke to a few minutes ago. I've gone through all the fields already on that application, so I won't go through those again. But you can see how easy it is to find the document. You go to that resources icon up in the top right-hand corner. When you get to the next page, scroll down through that until you find the grants program information. Click on an icon there about learning more, and that'll take you through to this particular application. So if you have any problems, we're certainly here to help, but I would think that most of you will get to that stage without too much trouble. Now, we're going to go now to questions. And I hope there have been some questions come through on the chat. Now, one of our business development managers, Jerem, is with us today, and he's been monitoring that chat. Jerem, have we had any questions come through?
None so far, but I do have some general questions in case everyone's a little bit shy. But I'll kick off there, Phil. What types of projects could council have funded under the program?
Okay, well, firstly, again, it comes back to procurement. The key thing is we want to support you guys out there. If you've got a project that you think is good procurement work and going to bring advantages to you and your team, let's hear about it. We have tried to give some guidelines in terms of what are the preferred projects. And as I mentioned earlier, we were talking about procurement capability. So if it's about enhancing the capability of your team or yourself, because I know some of you work alone out in that procurement environment, if the project is going to help you do your job, it's sounding good to me. If it's about process improvement, then again, that's going to deliver advantages. And think about this, if you've got a project that's going to bring some advantages and we could put that into some form of case study, well, that's even better, because this is all about trying to spread the good word. It's about showing other procurement people across the state and potentially interstate in local government what procurement can be doing to improve the way it operates and bring benefits to the councils. So think about that as you go through. If you've got ideas, are going to bring advantages in terms of efficiency, effectiveness, or to deliver perhaps more funds back to your councillors to again put back to the ratepayers and the community, then that's a winner. So think positive. Disaster recovery, given the circumstances that we're going through, I could see some potentials there as well. The evaluation criteria, again, came back to the things like the need and the capability and being able to see those outcomes come about. Next question, Jerome.
Thanks, Phil. So Christy's asked there, can I apply for one, a staff training program on procurement, and two, purchase of software, which would facilitate more integrated procurement and project management practices?
We're happy for you to lodge a number of EOIs. So what I would suggest, if you've got several projects in mind, lodge an EOI for each one of them. Lodge them separately so that we can consider them separately. We'll consider all applications on their merit, and we'll be doing that until such time as the funds run out. It's probably important that you lodge applications earlier rather than later. I might just point out that projects that are actually already underway won't be considered. So these need to be new projects. Just keep that in mind as you go through, but certainly lodge more than one application.
Thanks, Phil. And would a multi-council project also be suitable?
Most definitely. We have no qualms about supporting the Joes or the Rocks. We've tried to work well with the Rocks over the years, and for myself, having worked with WesRock for many years, I want to see those particular organisations flourish. I know WesRock did a lot of good work over the years. SRock likewise. There's various rocks that are doing different things. The Joes obviously have their challenges, but we want to see them successful in what they're doing. So this is about procurement. Let's find the best way to support you guys as much as we can. Jerome?
Once the applications close on the 15th of April, how long will it be until a decision's made on the application?
We'll be looking to process applications promptly. So I would expect that you could expect some feedback probably within 1 month. That would be preliminary feedback. We certainly want to get back to you to confirm acceptance, confirm receipt of the application. And at that point in time, we may be able to give you some idea as to the process time from then as well. Our board of directors meets on a 3-monthly basis. We will be aiming to keep them informed about the process. We have one of the board members actually involved in the committee that reviews the applications. And we'll be looking to do quick endorsements and quick approvals to get things to the second stage promptly, so that we keep the whole thing moving along.
Thanks, Phil. And is there a more substantial guidelines document available other than that one mentioned on the introductory webpage?
Because we're keeping this quite simple at the moment, that was the information that we envisaged would be adequate at this point in time. Now, if it obviously becomes clear that there is a need for further information, then we'll quickly get together some figures and facts for you to assist. I think what we're going to rely on here is a little bit of feedback from yourselves. Obviously, if there's a number of questions coming in about the same sort of thing, then clearly for us that's an area where we need to provide you with some further support. Certainly at the stage 2 process, there'll be a further level of information as well.
Thanks, Phil. And if council are successful, how much reporting or involvement will LGP require?
We'll be keeping it fairly limited and straightforward. For many simple projects, it'll be as basic as receipt of information from you, presumably via an invoice from the supplier or the consultant or the service provider, confirming that the work has been completed and that your payment to them is due. That'll be evidence to us that the project has been completed and that it's appropriate for us to forward the funding out. Now, if there's a project that's a little bit more involved and there's phased milestones and phased payments by council to the contractor, then clearly we can assist with some of those milestones as well. And it might be that we might make a phased payment to the council. It'll just depend on the actual project itself.
And Phil, if council's struggling with the 15th of April submission deadline, who should they speak with in LGP with regards to the application?
I would recommend that you come back firstly through your business development manager. Obviously, if we receive feedback that there's a lot of councils out there that are really struggling to meet that date, then we would certainly be talking about reconsidering and extending that date. The other thing is that just bear in mind that the EOI application at stage 1 is pretty simple. So even if you've got something that's fairly early in consideration, it might be that perhaps you're still talking with potential suppliers, but you know what the project is about, you know what you want to do. Perhaps you haven't got the actual commitment yet made, but you're expecting it to take place perhaps in the coming weeks. I would recommend that you actually lodge the EOI. If by chance it doesn't proceed at your end, then that's no problems from our end. We'll just take that application out of the process. So, you know, if you've got something there that you really want to do and you think it's a goer and you're feeling that it'll get the okay, by all means lodge the EOI.
Thanks, Phil. And can copy, or does it online only?
Sorry, Jeremy, but the line broke up there for a moment. I'll just get you to repeat that question.
That's okay. Can councils submit their application in hard copy, or does it need to be in online only?
No, look, we really need you to submit that online. Obviously, we're trying to streamline the whole process at our end, and there's certain technologies that we're using at our end to try and get all this into further software and further evaluation software. So we really need you to do it electronically. And, you know, I would hope that none of you have any difficulties with that electronic lodgement. Thanks, Jerome. I think we've finished with the questions. So
hello, Phil.
yes.
Yeah, Tony McCarthy from Armidale Council, and congratulations on the initiative. If we were to, hypothetically get a vendor panel through the application or any other technology advancement and other things, that would be 1 year. And what I know of these things, they have subscriptions for each year for many years, depending on the features involved. Does that qualify?
I don't see an issue with software of that nature at this first stage. If you were looking for it to be funded in the following years, I guess firstly, it wouldn't represent a new project. So I think it would fall out of the qualification process.
It would, yeah. And then you could do your benefit analysis on it and then go, this has worked for the council and funding as usual.
Yeah. And in terms of lodging the original EOI to us, certainly the fact that it's going to be something that will help your team in the years to come is an outcome that is worthy of mentioning. It's not something that's going to just finish in 6 months' time. It'll be ongoing, and that's something for us to consider. I would commend all of you, if you've got an idea, don't hold back, send it through, and let us give it consideration, because you don't know, who else might be lodging an application for the same sort of thing. And I wouldn't like any of you to miss an opportunity to have this funding.
Thank you.
All right, it looks like we may have reached then the end of question time. So I might, at this stage, hand back to Luke to give us a close, please.
Thanks, Phil. Thanks, everyone. Hopefully this is giving you an opportunity to do something different. And I think that's really what we're trying to do here, is put some funds aside, work with our councils on something they want to deliver that they've struggled to get going, and that's what we're keen to see. And I think Phil did a great job at outlining how it works. It is super simple. It's supposed to be simple. We don't want to make it hard. We want to make it easy for you. And appreciate that overview, Phil, and answering those questions. And if any of you are thinking about projects you want to do now, the business development managers are the people to discuss with. And if you want any help with that, any guidance, we can do that. No problem at all. Otherwise, we really look forward to seeing people starting to generate some interest around this program. Start to complete your submissions. Let's see them coming in and That gives Phil and I and others the job of evaluating, and hopefully we're under pressure because we've got lots of options, and that would really be a great outcome. So we're looking for your support. We're ready to listen to anything you need to put in your submissions, and we look forward to seeing them come through. So with that, I'll thank our team here for putting together today's event. I really do appreciate the work that they've done. I appreciate everyone joining today. Phil, thank you for your work in terms of building this program and explaining this program today. You've done a great job, and we look forward to seeing it being a very big success. Everyone, thank you, take care, stay safe, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.